Welcome back, viewers, to another video. Today we're going to be talking about UBC Sauder School of Business. So today I'll be doing a little bit of a different video because I really wanted to focus on the personal profile because I know all these applications are out already and I really want you guys to get a little bit more tips and a little bit more insights about how I applied to UBC Sauder and how I wrote my personal profile because I did get accepted to a program. So hopefully there's something you can take away from my personal profile that you can apply to your application if you want to get into UBC Sauder. Without further ado, we're still going to touch on the same things that we touch on. Normally, we go through a little bit of a program overview, talk about the academics, then we go through about admissions, how to get in, and this is where I'm going to talk about the personal profile. Then we're going to talk about student life and what it's like to study at UBC, and lastly, we're going to talk about funding, all about scholarships and bursaries. So let's hop right into the video. Alright, the first thing I want to do is go on a little bit of a program overview and talk about the academics of the program, starting with their co-op program. So, you have to work a minimum of 420 hours throughout this program, and this is through 3 4-month work terms. So you're working 12 months in total while you're in school, and a lot of the benefits here come from the one-on-one mentorship that you get from the career services. So a little bit of statistics for this program. Not everyone does get a co-op placement. Only around 60% of applicants are admitted. Although this number is high, not everyone applies to co-op, and also just make sure that you're ready to have a contingency plan or a backup plan to look for your own internships if you don't get into the co-op program. But with that said, the statistics are great for this co-op program. The average monthly salary is $3,475, so definitely you're able to earn a little bit of money in the summer or during a co-op term to help fund your education or just save up a little bit of extra money. The next thing I want to talk about is exchange. So UBC Sauder does offer an exchange program. They have 69 schools in 30 different countries, and this is done after you finish your first year credits and your second year credits. So typically the exchange program happens in your third year. Some notable universities that they partnered with are some business universities or just general universities in general. They partnered with Tsinghua University in China and also the National University of Singapore. Both very, very prestigious universities, and definitely recommend building a new experience or going out there to experience a different country. Let's talk about the first year courses that you need to take as an academic student at Sauder. So generally for first year, your courses are very, very fixed in Sauder and you have only one elective credit. But here it goes as follows. You need to take business fundamentals, values, ethics, and community, intro to quantitative decision making, statistics, and you also have to take management and organizational behavior. There's a little bit of like HR and stuff like that. And you have to take business communications, and you have to take micro and macro economics, and you have to take calculus. And then lastly, you have one elective that you can choose from. Alright, now we're going to go on to the part that you guys all been waiting for, admissions. So starting off with the requirements, UBC looks at all of your grade 11 and 12 courses, but there are some requirements that you need to have. For grade 12, you need to have an English and a math course, and then for grade 11, you also need an English course, a language 11 course, a math 11 course, and a science 11 course. In addition to all of this, you need to fill out a personal profile. So let's talk about the personal profile. I'm going to give you my example of the 2021 application. So this is my year when I applied to university. Some of these questions may be the same, some of the questions may be different, but I'm going to tell you how I tackled it and give you some of my tips that I can give you, because hopefully they're somewhat useful because I did get into the program, fortunately. So starting off with the first question that they gave us was explain how you responded to a problem or an unfamiliar situation. What did you do? What was the outcome? And what did you learn from the experience? How I answered this question, I wrote about my time as a cashier during the pandemic and all the different unfamiliar challenges that it came with. But most importantly, I really wanted to stress the question about like, what did you learn from the experience? So this is really important because they want to see growth as you as a person, and what did you learn from the experience. So my tip here is to have a quantifiable impact and to have a meaningful impact. What I mean by this is have a quantifiable impact is either you can have a number that you can place to your experience or some kind of like situation or example that you can kind of refer to. For example, you can write about a very specific situation that happened during your time as a cashier or whatever challenge you want to talk about, and talk about how you learned from that experience, or just literally talk about a number. For example, you kind of helped increase social distancing by placing X amount of numbers of different placemats, for example, to spread out the customers in the store. So something that's like very quantifiable and specific, and something that you learn from experience is very, very good, and that's what UBC is looking for. The next question that they talk about is give us an example about how the pandemic has changed your involvement in the community or group most important to you. So what have you learned from this experience? So yet again, they really stress on this, like, what have you learned from the experience? So my previous tip about having a quantifiable and meaningful and specific example and change or like kind of learning experience still applies to this question. But I'm not sure if this question is going to be on this year's application because the pandemic is slightly over, so they might change this question. But just really quickly, I wrote about my school club and how we had to take things virtuals and the meetings that we had to take, and we still had to kind of adapt to that because it was a really cool community that I had within my school debate club, and I really enjoyed that, and it was really important to me because it really helped me build my confidence. So I still wanted to kind of continue with that even though it was virtual and help other students as well. The next thing they ask you is to list 5 activities and give a short description for all of them. So this can be any extracurricular activities, work, hobbies, etc. So just really just write down 5 things cool about you and something diverse. So don't just really all focus on academics. Focus on like sports. Focus on different volunteering. Focus on different things that make you as human as possible. And they're really just looking for a diverse set of interests and activities. Tell us more about 1 or 2 activities listed above that are most important to you. Please explain the role that you played and what you learned in the process. You'll be asked for a reference who can speak to this response. So don't worry, they didn't contact my reference, but they do ask for your email and the name of the reference. So it's not like a reference letter, but make sure it's like a real activity and you have a reference that can kind of back you up. But with that said, they don't contact every single reference because that'll just be too tedious. But make sure you do have a reference for sure. So with this said, just take 1 or 2 of the activities that you talked about in the last 5 short descriptions and write in depth what you learned, what it was, and kind of like what you did. So I think that's the 3 most important parts, starting about like what the activity is and what did you do and what did you contribute to the activity, and thirdly, what did you learn or was the impact that you kind of left on the community or left on yourself or changed in that process. The next part of it is they give you a little space of 600 characters and they ask you may use this space to below to provide UBC with any more information about your academic history to date or your future academic plans. So my tip here is I wrote about a very specific club in UBC and how that contribute to my future academic goals and future academic plans. And what I wrote about is I was really interested in Formula One, and I still am, and I wrote about the Formula Racing club that they had at UBC and how I really wanted to join that and how I wanted to be in the kind of business role because I was applying to UBC Sauder and hopefully I could get more funding for the club or get some more sponsors. And that was something I was really passionate about because growing up I loved cars and I loved Formula One. And writing something super specific shows to the university that you've done the research and you really care about the university. So I think that's a very, very good tip, and it shows that you've done your research and you're passionate. The last part of this application is about having to clarify or just give you this empty space again, 2,000 characters, about kind of explaining anything that you want to kind of clear up in the process. So what I did here is I took a little bit of a project that I referred to in the video interview and I kind of just backed it up with the links and a few like descriptions of what I did for the project to give it a little bit more background and context because you only have a little bit of time to explain that in the video interview. Okay, with that said, I know this was a very, very long application and I know UBC personal profile is known to be long, hard, and really kind of frustrating to write. But there is one more aspect about it, which is the video interview. So how this interview process is, you're not actually talking to a real person. This is all pre-recorded and done online through the application. So how it works is that they ask you a pre-recorded question and then they give you a 30-second kind of prep time where you can process that question and kind of write down some notes or kind of plan your thoughts in your head. And then you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to give that response in front of your webcam camera, and then you kind of just have one shot and you just have to submit it. So my biggest tip here is definitely pay attention to the question. They ask for things that are kind of general behavioral questions, like tell us about a time that you've been creative or you've shown leadership, something like that. They're just really looking for you to show initiative as a person. But my biggest tip here is definitely during the 30-second prep period, I would have like a little piece of paper right in front of me or a little sticky note, and I would just have a pencil jot down 1 to 3 little just notes that I can refer to when I'm talking in the 1 minute 30 response time. They could just literally just be keywords that I can refer to, like this project or this date or kind of like this activity, and I can talk about that in my 1 minute 30 response. So I'm not just rambling in front of a camera that doesn't make sense. You kind of have like a little notes that you can refer to, so you're not stressed and you know what you're talking about. Okay, that was a lot of personal profile information. Let's talk about some of the admission statistics. So with that said, I know it was very, very important to have a good supplemental personal profile, but they don't only just look at that, they look at your GPA as well. So the admission average for UBC Sauder is 92%, give or take, but previous years they have seen a 96% average in high school for the previous entering class. So make sure you guys get your grades as high as possible. With that said, the acceptance rate for UBC Sauder is also super competitive. It is around 6%. Now let's talk a little about student life. We made another video about UBC Science, so this might be a little bit of redundant information because they still have the same dorms and residences. So you can check out that video if you haven't, or just kind of stay tuned here. But about UBC residences, they have so many different residences, but the most popular one that most first years get is called Orchard Commons. So they have many options from single to connected to suite style, and they cost around $11,000 to $15,000 for the full year, depending on the style that you get for your residence. In addition, you can also just pay for 1 semester of residence. So if you just want the traditional first year experience, you can pay for 1 semester and maybe just live at home and commute to school after. So for meal plan, they have an all access residence dine-in $6,000 all you can eat meal plan. And in addition to this, they also have a flex meal plan. So you can save 5% on any on-campus dining as well. So for social life, they have a ton of UBC events, not hosted by the school and not hosted by the school, but there's an events calendar that I'll just drop the link in the description, and you can search up if there's something that interests you. So for libraries, there's 12 different branches of libraries on UBC, but the corner library is the main branch and the biggest branch and has most of the collections over it. So make sure you guys check out that library. It's a great place to study, and it has a ton of study rooms and spaces, which I do really appreciate, and it's really modern and it looks really nice. So for clubs, you won't have a hard time finding clubs at all. There's over 350 clubs, and they're all under the UBC AMS, which is kind of like their student union. You can contact them and just search up the clubs list over there. So for UBC Sauder, the first year that you're at Sauder, for domestic students, it costs $6,000, and then from years 2 to 4, it costs $8,500. And then if you're international students, you would have to pay $55,000 every single year. That's the tuition for UBC Sauder. But with that said, there are a few scholarships that UBC offers that can kind of cut this cost down. So there's the presidential scholarship that's worth around $40,000. And this is in your UBC application. They give you a little bit of space, 1,800 characters that ask you, please tell us why you should be considered for this award. So that's the application process for that. It is very competitive, it is very limited, and I heard most of the time it's based off your grade as well. So make sure that you have the highest possible grade and also write like a good response so you have a competitive chance of getting the scholarship. The last thing I wanted to talk about is about financial aid. So they do have a financial emergency fund and also bursaries. So financial emergency fund is kind of intuitive in the name. Is if you have a financial emergency, you can contact and apply to this fund to see if UBC is able to help your situation. But more commonly for bursaries, so bursaries are assessed on unmet financial need, and this is UBC's criteria. So they take your individual student loans assessment, which is determined by the provincial BC government or your provincial lender, and then you take your program's eligibility for UBC's bursary funding, and then you see your family size and prior year total income, and they assess this through UBC system and see if you're eligible for any bursaries or financial aid to kind of cut down and kind of tackle the unmet cost of tuition and cost for university. So with that said, I really hope this video helped you guys. And I know I was super stressed when I was writing my UBC personal profile. And UBC was the first application I sent in, so I was super stressed. But hopefully you guys learned something important and useful in this video about the personal profile or just anything else about the UBC Sauder program. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and take the time to check out our link in bio, a 3-minute quiz to assess your eligibility for GrantMe support for admissions and also scholarships. So I'll leave those links down below, and if you enjoyed this video, again, just make sure you like and subscribe and share it with a friend that might enjoy it as well. See you guys next time.